They called him Dracula, son of the dragon, but history would remember him by another name, the Impaler. In the shadowed hills of 15th century Wallachia, a place of dense forests, dark superstitions, and endless war, Vlad III was born into a world already drenched in blood. His father, Vlad II, had earned the title Dracula after joining a secret order sworn to protect Christendom, the Order of the Dragon. But the dragons of Eastern Europe weren't just knights in shining armor. They were ruthless men, forged in fire, bound by politics, and surrounded by enemies. As a boy, Vlad and his brother Radu were taken hostage by the Ottoman Empire, a political favor meant to ensure their father's loyalty, but it was no favor. Inside the Ottoman court, Vlad learned cruelty. He saw impalement, the brutal act of skewering a person alive on a sharpened pole. He watched as men screamed themselves hoarse, hanging like meat over the battlefield. He learned how fear bends men, how pain can rule a kingdom. When Vlad returned to Wallachia, he came back changed, older, colder, and filled with a relentless fury. His father and older brother had been murdered by rival nobles. Vlad didn't forget. He didn't forgive. In 1456, at just 25 years old, he seized the throne of Wallachia, and from the moment he took power, he ruled with fire and iron. Vlad had a message for his enemies, foreign or domestic: obey or suffer. He began a brutal purge of the nobility, targeting the very boyars who had betrayed his family. Some were beheaded, others were burned alive, but for many he reserved something worse: the stake, a sharpened pole, a victim hoisted and lowered onto it slowly, their own body weight driving them deeper down. It could take hours to die, sometimes days. This wasn't madness, it was method. To Vlad, terror wasn't a byproduct of rule, it was the foundation of it. He turned fear into policy, and impalement became his signature. It earned him a title, Vlad Chepes, Vlad the Impaler. But his cruelty wasn't just personal, it was political. He wanted to unite his fractured country, to cleanse it of corruption, to scare off foreign invaders, and for a time, it worked. Crime dropped, enemies fled, and tales of Vlad's savagery spread like wildfire. But his reign of blood was only just beginning. It was not enough for Vlad to rule by fear. He wanted the world to see it. In 1462, the Ottoman Sultan Mehmed II, conqueror of Constantinople, marched on Wallachia with over 90,000 men, a force meant to crush Vlad like an insect. But what the Sultan found was not resistance. It was a nightmare. As his army approached the capital, Targovishte, they stopped cold. Before them stretched a forest, but not of trees. It was made of bodies. 20,000 corpses, rotting in the sun, each impaled on tall wooden stakes. Men, women, even children. Enemies, criminals, peasants. All arranged with brutal precision, like some macabre gallery of death. The Sultan's chroniclers wrote of the stench, the silence, the horror. Even hardened warriors were shaken. Mehmed advanced no further. Vlad hadn't defeated the Ottomans with force. He defeated them with terror, and the tales grew darker still. One story claims he invited hundreds of sick and poor to a banquet, only to lock the doors and burn the hall to the ground. He didn't want to feed them. He wanted to rid the land of what he saw as weakness. Another tells of a foreign envoy who refused to remove his hat in Vlad's presence. Vlad, ever courteous, had the man's hat nailed to his skull so he would never remove it again. True or exaggerated, these stories served a purpose. Vlad made himself a living legend, a symbol of cruelty, one stake at a time. But every reign of terror invites rebellion, and Vlad had no shortage of enemies. The Ottomans, the Hungarian crown, his own people, even his brother Radu, who now sided with the Turks. Vlad's world was closing in, but the blood had not yet dried beneath his boots. power built on terror is never stable. By 1462, Vlad's enemies were no longer just foreign invaders. They were in his own court, his own family. His brother Radu, once an ally, now returned at the head of an Ottoman-backed army, hailed by many as the rightful ruler of Wallachia. Vlad fought back with the fury of a cornered animal. He burned his own villages to deny resources to the advancing Turks. He poisoned wells. He launched daring ambushes, even attempting to assassinate the Sultan himself during a night raid. But he was vastly outnumbered. Eventually, he fled to Transylvania, seeking protection from the Hungarian king Matthias Corvinus. Instead of aid, Vlad was imprisoned. His crimes had caught up with him, not just the brutality, but the diplomatic chaos he left in his wake. He spent more than a decade in captivity, and yet he returned. In 1476, Vlad reclaimed his throne for a third time. Briefly. Within weeks, he was ambushed and killed, likely by Ottoman forces. His head was sent to Constantinople and displayed on a stake, a gruesome trophy. It was a fitting end. Vlad had lived by the stake, he died by it. But even in death, he refused to be forgotten. Stories of his cruelty spread across Europe like wildfire. German pamphlets printed decades later claimed he had killed over 100,000 people. He was called the Impaler, the Devil's Son, and eventually, Dracula. Centuries have passed, yet the shadow of Vlad the Impaler still stretches across the world. In Western Europe, he's remembered as a bloodthirsty tyrant. In Romania, he's something else entirely. A hero, a nationalist, a necessary evil. To understand how both can be true, we have to ask a hard question. What's real? And what's myth? The image of Vlad impaling tens of thousands, drinking blood and feasting beside corpses comes mostly from German and Saxon pamphlets, designed not to inform, but to horrify. They were propaganda, an early form of tabloid journalism, crafted by his enemies and printed decades after his death. They painted him as a sadist, a devil, and the image stuck. But Romanian sources tell a different story. One of a ruler who brought law and order to a chaotic land, who punished thieves, silenced corruption, and protected his people from foreign rule. And yet, even those sympathetic sources don't deny the violence. They simply justify it. What's clear is this: Vlad ruled through fear. He used impalement not only as punishment, but as spectacle, a grim theatre designed to break the spirit of his enemies. The Forest of the Impaled wasn't a myth. It was a warning. Vlad Tepes died over 500 years ago, but his legacy endures, not because he was good or evil, but because he was unforgettable. He wasn't a vampire. He didn't have fangs or sleep in a coffin. The truth is far more terrifying, because Vlad the Impaler didn't need to be a monster. He was human, and he chose to rule with cruelty.